Hello, I'm Gloria Macarenko. Well, today we're going to bring you stories of resilience and generosity. I'm glad you could join us. This is Our Vancouver. Coming up, how a simple bag like this is helping small businesses across our province and our country. And we'll show you how 2 refugees from the Middle East are working to keep their new business afloat during the pandemic. But first, a wheelchair sport fighting for a place at the Paralympics, boxing. Well, he was Canada's lightweight champion in 2014, and he had his sights on boxing in the Olympics. And then in 2017, he was shot 4 times in his leg, his torso, and his back, and that put him on a different path. Well, joining us now is Leo Samarelli. He is the head coach of West Coast Wheelchair Adaptive Boxing, and he's on the board of Boxing BC as well. Leo, hello there.
Hi there.
Now, I don't want to dwell on this, but not everybody's got a bullets in their back story. What happened?
Yeah, so in March 13, 2017, I was shot outside my home in North Vancouver due to a mistaken identity.
Okay, well, I'm sorry to hear that. But wow, have you ever been a master of adapting? I mean, how did you get back into boxing in a wheelchair?
It took some time for me to come back to the sweet science, actually. If it wasn't up for the encouragement of the community and my friends and family here, and honestly, finding a new way to train in obviously a limited setting now, being in a wheelchair, not being able to use my legs. So adapting all my previous workouts for boxing and my regiment was necessary.
Well, and what changes? I mean, what kinds of, I guess, how does it change the sport when you're confined to a wheelchair?
Well, now that now obviously that I don't have my legs and having a wheelchair, so wheelchair skills are vital, right? Turning left and right and staying on balance now that my core has been affected too. So and adapting just something like skipping, adaptive skipping ropes, and just really pioneering the way for adaptive training and adaptive boxing too. So.
Okay, and what about the competition itself? Are there still knockouts?
Unfortunately, due to the COVID incident, we were gonna have it at the end of the documentary to have that almost that exhibition, and we were going to get in the ring and spar and have like I said, an exhibition, and there would be contact, and with the proper head equipment and everything like that, we would obviously prevent any injury from the head or anything like that. But yes, there would be it would be just like boxing. It'd be boxing and displaying the art of boxing.
Wow. So how do you prevent people from falling over, or do you?
Well, yeah. So we're actually not in our normal everyday wheelchairs. We're actually in our like a sports wheelchair, something similar to a basketball wheelchair or a tennis wheelchair that has an anti-tipper wheel on the back. So we can't necessarily fall backwards. Okay. And the individual themselves, obviously, if they can't defend themselves, if they're getting peppered by shots, that is the referee's job to come in there and, either bring them to the corner or call the match.
Wow. Now, it looks so intense. I'm really impressed. And I know that you train other athletes too, and you used to love skipping rope as part of your own training. So how are you able to adapt that for people in wheelchairs?
So, it really depends on the individual, because there's all sorts of different kind of disabilities, not just spinal cord injury. I do teach other people with obviously different abilities. So everything needs to be adapted. if they don't have that core movement, strapping is necessary to stabilize them in their chairs. And yeah, it's just really we've adapted those skipping ropes for them to use, and just different ranges of motion that we wouldn't necessarily be doing or be expected to do in a wheelchair. Yeah, it's an all-around full body workout, and yeah, definitely.
No, it's amazing. So, Leo, what would you say this sport in general, and I guess the community as a whole, what does it mean for the athletes?
Well, it goes farther than boxing, and like you said, it's community, and on the documentary it says it brings people together from all realms, right? And it forms like a community and a brotherhood or whatever. It's a great time to get all together and work out and just live a healthier lifestyle. And yeah, and it's the benefits would go physically, mentally, everything. Who doesn't like punching stuff and getting their anger out and getting whatever out, out of their system. So it's a great great workout.
A great release by the sounds of things
Great
as
release
well.
for sure.
Yeah. Now you mentioned COVID-19 has affected the matches. What about your actual training protocol? You have to think about safety on that front as well?
Yeah. So right now, obviously the gyms have been closed, social distancing, and everything like that. So we did, in collaboration, team up with Spinal Cord Injury BC to hold some online classes for those at home right now. And I do hold online classes 3 times a week for people with disabilities, or it could be able bodies as well, participating in the class. So we did adapt it to the virtual realm, and also we are firing back to get people actually in the gym in person now that things are kind of settling down too.
Well, that's good to hear. Now, besides the boxing, you ski and you cycle as well. So how would you compare all of those sports, all those para sports?
Well, it's skiing and cycling is more of a long distance kind of sport, right? It's a great cross training. Yeah, great cross training, and I also, like you said, compete in cross country skiing. So yeah, it's definitely seasonal for me, and I use boxing as a great way to cross train through that too, to reach my goals and all that stuff. So yeah, it's all just, if you're doing one movement, and when you combine all these movements together and you get a better range of motion, and yeah, it's great. It works all great together.
Okay, it all builds on each other, I see. So
Yeah.
now we're seeing that the Adaptive Boxing Organization is now advocating for this sport to be included in the Paralympics. What do you see as the challenges in that quest?
Obviously, safety is number one concerns, and I like to see like a one rule fits all system, where everyone from which we are in talks right now of like-minded people around the world from various countries of coming together and figuring out the judging and the reffing and the classification systems, right? Because obviously people with disabilities all have different levels, right? So combining that together with the proper safety and equipment necessary to do this, to display the art of boxing is that's what it's going to come down to. And it might sound weird to the normal person to hear that people with disabilities are boxing, but it can be done, and documentary shows that. And yeah, it was just one aspect of it. We didn't really get into the other disabilities, amputees or war vets, or all that kind of stuff. So this is just touching the surface of this. So be expected to see more in the future.
I hope so, Leo. Well, thank you so much for opening your world to us. Pleasure to meet you. You stay safe, okay? Take care.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Matt, and you're watching Our Vancouver.
All right, it's time now for one of our favorite features. This is where we get to showcase some of the photographs that you send in to us. Let's start here. Rob Alexander sent us this colorful photograph of a fly approaching an alpine wetland wildflower. He captured it on the U Lake Trail up Cypress Provincial Park. Just gorgeous. Thank you. And look at the light blue rushing water in this beautiful photograph taken by Georgina Havelka. It's from the Berg Lake Trail in Mount Robson Provincial Park. Thank you, Georgina. And finally, Connor Murphy took this photo of a harbor seal pup at Horseshoe Bay. Just adorable. Thank you. And do send us more. It's easy. You can just email your photographs to us, bcphotos@cbc.ca. All one word, bcphotos@cbc.ca. Now, two Vancouver men who fled persecution in the Middle East are now facing another hurdle, keeping their business afloat during a pandemic. But as Andrea Ross reports, despite an uncertain future, they are optimistic.
Galileo Aisami is making sure his Granville Island store looks perfect. Every embroidered cushion and silk scarf has a story, and he's excited to finally share it.
All of the items handmade by Syrian refugee women who are living in Turkey, so they put a lot of feeling in those items.
Aisami arrived in Canada just over a year ago with his partner, Raphael Mashalani. They fled Syria and Lebanon, where they faced war and persecution for being gay.
So I just packed a bag and ran to the only country that would allow me to go there without a visa, which was Turkey.
It was there that they settled into a colorful community of refugees, jewelry makers and artists who crafted intricate embroidery and bright scarves. Mashalani says being granted asylum in Canada offered a chance at a new, safer life and a chance to share their journey and their culture.
We were very adamant on we need to open this store, not only for us, for the people we've left behind, and we want a piece of home with us here in this store.
Now they face another hurdle, keeping their business alive during a pandemic. Right after opening in March, they had to close because of COVID-19. And like many other shop owners, the business they'd worked hard to create faced an uncertain future.
COVID-19, yes, it's a serious virus. We needed to be careful. But for me, I've seen worse. I've seen a lot worse, and I've been through worse. And so we don't give up easy. We don't surrender easily. Because if you survived wars, you've survived death threats, you've survived all of that, you will survive this.
Now the store is open with some precautions in place to keep people safe. They're grateful for where they are and optimistic for whatever happens next.
It's home for me, Canada in general, it's home for me, and the future is amazing.
They say there will be tough times ahead, but it's nothing they can't overcome. Andrea Ross, CBC News, Vancouver.
Coming up, Johanna Wagstaff explains why a 3D map of the universe is such a huge accomplishment.
It's bigger, it's better, and it's now in 3D. These are the claims of the newly released map of the universe, and that has scientists very excited about this huge scientific achievement. It's a project that took 15 years of research, more than 100 scientists from around the world, and a lead research team out of the University of Waterloo in Ontario. So let's take a look. Each one of these dots represents a galaxy, just like our own Milky Way. We're traveling away from Earth, and you can see these galaxies speeding by. This map is made up of 2 million galaxies and quasars and looks farther out, or further back if you will, than any other map, 11 billion years into the past. And the universe is 13.7 billion, so that's a huge swath of time. The team used the telescope, the Sloan telescope, that has a special spectrograph to basically see the color of galaxies. Plotting a 2D map of the universe is a little more straightforward. You look up in the sky, you measure the angles, and you get a flat map. But to get a 3D map, the team used something called the redshift to figure out the distance between objects. Take a listen to the lead author.
We found that the universe is accelerating in its expansion. That means that it is getting larger and larger at a more and more rapid rate. And this goes against modern physics. With this kind of map, we're really testing physics at levels you could never test in a lab on the Earth. And we're seeing strange things happen. There's new physics out there, and that's what's exciting.
So what the team ended up with was basically a standard ruler. And from this, a whole bunch of other experiments about the universe can be tested. And already we're seeing patterns as to how matter clumped together after the Big Bang, and it's not arbitrary. A major question mark in our understanding of the universe is dark energy. We know it exists everywhere, but we're just not sure exactly what its properties or uses. But this map really opens the door to starting to answer some of those big questions. As for the research team, all of this data is available to the public, meaning you or I could download it if we want to. These open databases often produce even more discoveries and scientific papers than the original research team. So stay tuned. And now, you're Science Smart. If you have a science question on your mind, send me a tweet and I'll try to get it answered.
Thank you so much, Johanna. Welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Macarenko. Now, several BC First Nations communities are still choosing not to welcome visitors. That's despite many restrictions being eased in most of the province and the economic concerns brought on by the pandemic, of course. CBC's Greg Rasmussen looks at the financial impact and the challenges some communities are facing to safely reopen.
This ferry links the outside world to Cormorant Island, home to about 500 people in Alert Bay and a neighboring First Nations reserve. After an Indigenous community member died of COVID in April, the island shut itself off to non-residents.
I found it astounding that early on there were still people wanting to visit and be tourists. When it was a time when we should have been staying home or should be staying home.
Now, the community is cautiously reopening to those wanting to see its spectacular totem poles and open vistas.
Certainly a bit of nervousness, but nowhere near what it was like when we were in the middle of it.
A very, very special mask.
The lack of visitors has hit the local cultural centre, renowned for its collection of masks and carvings.
The Umista Cultural Centre is important to tell a story to the rest of the world on what has happened to our people. It costs a lot of money to maintain the operations of the centre.
While some communities are cautiously reopening, others are remaining firmly closed. Local residents took to the waters off Haida Gwaii after 2 fishing lodges reopened despite the objections of Indigenous leaders. Haida Gwaii is the largest of a number of remote, mostly Indigenous jurisdictions along the BC coast telling visitors not to come. Most tourists arriving at these checkpoints are cooperating, but some have become hostile when asked to turn around. New Hulk Hereditary Chief Noel Putlas says the measures safeguard vulnerable residents.
The value of our protecting our elders is high.
Many Indigenous tourism operators are worried about the financial pain, but they don't see an easy way out.
Many of us will suffer, but the general moral, ethical, if you will, response is, well, we don't want to be the one to bring it here.
Back in Alert Bay, a dock that would normally be packed with visiting boats. This Nanaimo couple is sailing up the coast, but they checked on the latest rules before coming ashore.
They have every reason to protect themselves and not be dealing with an onslaught of people coming in who've been where, doing what.
The bottom line, they say, respect the wishes of these communities. Greg Rasmussen, CBC News, Alert Bay, BC.
Now, when COVID-19 hit, the fate of a lot of small businesses was suddenly up in the air. Our next guest was certainly worried about her own businesses, but she also realized she could help many others in BC and across Canada, in fact, who were in the same situation. Well, Susie Gay is a co-founder of This Bag Helps. Susie, hello there.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So just tell us, how can bags help small businesses?
Yeah, so back in March, when everything was shutting down, my design work was also being affected. And so I thought perhaps I can design something to help other businesses being affected. And so we designed a tote bag with the words, "This bag helped a small business." And all of the proceeds from the sales of the bag fund a micro grant program that we started as a part of the initiative.
Oh, great. And how has the idea taken off? How many businesses are you helping?
It's been amazing. We're just so thankful by the community support, getting behind the cause. And we've been able to help 10 small businesses so far across the country. And yeah, we were just so touched by their stories. And it's just been an amazing community initiative.
Well, tell me about some of those businesses and their stories.
Oh, I'd love to. Oh, they warm my heart. And actually, my daughter started to be on the calls when we would notify the grant recipients. And they almost had us close to tears just hearing of the hope and the support from these grants. So one of them is a Vancouver restaurant, Balila, and they're amazing. So even though they were struggling during COVID, they started a program to support healthcare workers in their community by donating meals to them, which is amazing. Another one, Cité Soap in Toronto, and they employ refugee women in the making of their soaps. And then when COVID hit, weddings were impacted, and they make a lot of wedding favors. And so they're using the grant to just help support their organization and ensure they don't have any layoffs. And then another one in Vancouver, the Homestart Foundation, and they collect surplus furniture. And in a typical month, they provide families in need, about 40 of them in the Vancouver area, with a complete furnishing of their home. And then they were affected when COVID hit. And so we've been able to provide them a grant to help cover some of the PPE measures as they slowly reopen.
Well, Susie, there's a real theme here, isn't there? These are people who are in tough times themselves, and they're reaching out at the same time to help other people. And that's kind of what you're doing too. Just tell me about how your businesses have been affected.
Yeah, so we have a rental business, a stand-up paddle rental business, and it was quite affected. We actually made the decision not to open just when we were looking at tourism and just the measures we would have to take to sanitize boards. A lot of rentals have opened and have done it successfully, but we just kind of made that choice and focused on our other careers. So as we were thinking about our own business, that's when the This Bag idea popped into our heads.
I see. So you've made that transition, but I'm just thinking about the energy that it takes. I mean, you point out you have a child, 2 children. How many kids have you got?
We have 2 wonderful young kids. I wake up really early now, about 5 in the morning, to work on this. And the kids have gotten right behind the cause too. Our daughter, in fact, if I can segue, she helps me package orders, and as the cause is evolving to include other charities, and we support various other causes, she's just gotten right behind it. There's one, This Bag helped educate a girl, and Sadie has just been such an advocate for it.
So where do you see this bag initiative going from here, as we still are not out of the woods with COVID?
No, we are not. Every day I'm receiving more and more applications of struggling businesses in need. We've received hundreds now. We would just love to help them all. We've helped 10. Could we help 10 more? 100? 1,000? Yeah, we would just love to help more. Oh, we designed a shirt, you can see, to also reach out and raise more funds. So it's
what does your shirt say? I can't see it from here.
This shirt helped a small business.
Oh, nice. Bags and shirts, and you're helping small businesses across the province and across the country as well. Congratulations to you. I hope that they'll be paddleboarding in Penticton safely again soon. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you. Take care.
Hi, I'm Jens from Denmark. You're watching Our Vancouver.
A lot of big events have been canceled or gone online since the pandemic hit. Vancouver's Monsoon Festival of Performing Arts is going mostly virtual this year, with an August full of South Asian dance and music, comedy, and more. And featured events include an intimate and candid conversation between arts and entertainment pioneers Monica Diol and Chin Injeti, and a staged reading of Himit, a play by Vancouver's Govan Chima about a father and daughter born generations and miles apart. Will actually be a drive-in event for up to 15 vehicles. For more information, go to monsoonartsfest.ca. Natural public spaces are usually important parts of the Vines Arts Festival in Vancouver, but Facebook and YouTube are going to be the places to be this year with events such as Freedom, Stories of Black Liberation, featuring drumming, dance, spoken word, and much more, all in collaboration with Afro Van Connect. For their full program, go to vinesartfestival.com. And while you're online, check out all 12 episodes of the next wave of stand-up featuring 3 Vancouver comics right now on CBC Gem. Here's the trailer.
Hello! I was a little late coming because my neighbor confused me for their Uber driver, so...
Where are my NASCAR fans at?
No touch your gun, no touch your gun, no touch your gun.
I'm way too high to be on stage right now.
Listen. You have to leave.
I wanted to be a punk, you know, like, you know, I want to be like, you know, I want to be like a, punk, you know?
This is what a modern midlife crisis looks like. Now, you guys.
And my mom, oh bitch, my mom. She keeps pressuring me and my boyfriend to have kids, and I keep telling her, I'm like, we're trying.
White parents come with some really neat features that are not available in the other colors of parents.
Screw you, that's funny, that's funny.
And I do it because I am an entertainer.
Hey, I'm Grant Lawrence from CBC Music here with a great new song from a Canadian artist with a fine and growing legacy of music. Her name is Basha Bulat. She came of age in London, Ontario, and before I share her latest single with you, let's go all the way back to the beginning of this artist's career.
All the hopes that you've been holding on to for so long, and the fires you've been chasing down now are all gone. I can tell you are a long way from the one you love. Oh, the night it takes so long to fall. Oh, in the night, oh, in the night, oh, in the night, I will hide away my fortunate son.
That is the absolutely joyful debut single from Basha Bulat, playing her then signature auto harp on the song In the Night. That goes all the way back to 2007 on Basha's first album, Oh My Darling. Now that big beat made a big splash in the Canadian indie scene, landing Basha Bulat on the shortlist of the Polaris Music Prize. In 2014, Basha Bulat earned a Juno nomination on the strength of her album, Tall, Tall Shadow. And here's the incredible title track.
Cover all your stars. One day I know they will be tried. No deception left. And now even you might realize that there is no lie, that you can't live in tearing apart your own confession made in the dark. Now every hour change of heart, you're running away, but the shadow is yours.
That is Basha Bulat with her beautiful song, Tall, Tall Shadow, from the album of the same name. And get this, of Basha Bulat's 4 released albums since 2007, 3 of them have made it to the shortlist for the Polaris Music Prize. That is the prize for the best Canadian album of the year. 3 out of 4 records is pretty remarkable. This year, Basha Bulat returns with her 5th album entitled Are You in Love? From that record, check out this single called Your Girl.
You let down your guard, all 'cause you couldn't face your heart again. Let your temperature rise and then let your anger strike your love away. In the storm that follows her, all the words it shouldn't hurt to say. Broken glass and broken hearts of tears. Broke a promise you should not have made. When you lay down your girl, yeah, you lay down your girl, yeah, you lay down your girl. She's never coming back again.
That is the ever-consistent Basha Bulat with her new song and video for Your Girl, which was filmed on a farm in northern Quebec with some really big horses. The song is from Basha Bulat's new album that will be released in March, and Your Girl is the song that you need to add to your playlist this week. Watch for Basha Bulat on tour across Canada this spring. I'm Grant Lawrence from CBC Music. Check in with you again next week.
Coming up, learning how to raise an anti-racist child from two educators. Hi, welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Macarenko. Now, racism is something you learn, not something you're born with. But how can we raise the next generation of children to be anti-racist? CBC's Nadia Janif spoke to two child educators.
I've had Muslim students who wear hijabs that have faced derogatory language about, going back to your country. We've had a number of our Black students go through some experiences that really did traumatize them. Absolutely openly racist things happening.
Kids are taking in messages that are racist or racialized. Who's represented in the books that they read, in the shows that they watch, who are the protagonists, who are the bad guys.
The system was built with a racialized lens. It was built to be racist. And I speak with Canada here in mind. We do live in a system that was very much built out of that settler colonial model. Literally, one of the things anti-racism asks for is to take down that system. That will not happen by accident, and it's a revolution that needs to change that. We can absolutely engender that into our kids and into our system.
Infants as young as 3 to 6 months old are noticing racial differences and are actually preferring people who look like them. We teach kids not to steal, not to lie, not to hit other kids. Being non-racist is just another element of that.
I'll just say it. You're either part of the problem or you're part of the solution. Open up your home to different experiences. Open up your home to different people.
Bias stems from not having had that exposure or contact.
It's in the activities you choose to do in the community. It's in the books and the TV shows and whatever it is, the things you like to do as a family.
All of that would help in reducing and combating bias.
When it comes to parents that might not have any experience with the concepts of anti-racism and privilege and white supremacy, take on that learning yourself. Find articles or videos or whatever that might look like that are coming from Indigenous, Black, people of color perspectives. How does this relate to me? What is my relationship in this situation of racism, of colonization, etc.?
Know that you'll make mistakes along the way, and that role models, being human for your kids.
Let's say it is a moment in an elevator and someone says something about, someone looks different.
Name it. I noticed that you said this.
You want to kind of validate the idea of curiosity, but then maybe start to talk about how can we learn more about this? Maybe we can read something together.
Because we often form stereotypes because of a lack of information.
A huge part of being anti-racist is to listen. And if you listen to what Indigenous, Black, people of color are saying right now, is that stop telling us that Canada's better. We've had multiple Indigenous people murdered after wellness checks just in the last couple weeks. We have Black people telling stories of the everyday racism they face on the streets of Surrey, of Vancouver, of Canada. It absolutely happens here. And instead of saying, well, at least we're not America, maybe what I want to start hearing is, I never want to be America. I never want to be what Canada is right now, and we need to be better.
Children observe their caregivers. What we do and what we don't do, what we say or what we don't say, has an imprint on them. What do my friends look like? Who's appropriate to date or marry? If something racist comes up, if you don't say anything, how does the child interpret that?
What you model in your home is absolutely crucial. The bottom line is, you want to protect your child. That's number one, right? You want them to feel empowered. You want them to be able to live a good life. That's why you need anti-racism.
Coming up, making the case for Eden Robinson's novel, Son of a Trickster, on this year's Canada Reads. Hi, welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Macarenko. Now this year, the theme for CBC's Canada Reads competition is one book to bring Canada into focus. And once again, a BC author is in the running for the annual Battle of the Books. Eden Robinson's Son of a Trickster is representing our province. So here's an excerpt of the panel's discussion. This was from day 2.
Gagné Dio, as you giggle your way into this, that's ideal because we didn't talk much about Son of a Trickster yesterday. So we wanted to start with you today. We're giving you 60 seconds. What makes the novel Son of a Trickster by Eden Robinson a great book?
All right, for my book, I'm going to lean on the fact that I believe it's got universal appeal. Being a classic coming-of-age story. I think people of all ages can access this book, from young adult to elders. And I think the circumstances of what it is to be Indigenous in this country are merely a backdrop to a layered story filled with magic and the supernatural and witches. And I think because this book is so accessible to a broad audience, it has a chance to humanize my people in the eyes of Canadians. There's relatable themes like identity, love, and resilience. There's strong female characters that surround the lead, Jared. It's written by an Indigenous auntie who I think deserves to be celebrated. And if you are left wanting more, just know that it's a first in a trilogy. That's it.
All right, great. 15 seconds to spare. I'll ring it for propriety's sake, but I don't need to. Thank you, Gagné Dio. Okay, panelists, what do you think about what Gagné Dio had to say about Son of a Trickster? Akil, let's start with you.
I liked the book. I thought it was fun. I definitely think it's important for us as Canadians to understand more about the original settlers of the land. And I think the coolest thing for me was to learn a lot more about that other world, the spiritual side. There's a part, I'm a very deeply spiritual person. I'm into quantum physics and that kind of stuff. So there's some passages in that book that I think were really, really cool in how their spirituality plays into, like, you know, the modern esoterics. And so I took that with me. It was a little difficult jump because I wasn't sure whether some of the things were happening in that world or in the actual world, and without having a lot of background into that kind of magic. It's the first book I've ever read that ever dealt with magical surrealism. Is that what it's called?
Magical realism.
Magical realism. So for me, I probably wasn't prepared enough to understand when we were in and when we were out, but I learned a tremendous amount. I would say the knock I'd have on it is I think it was tough for her to write such young characters. I think some of the verbiage of the young characters probably was a little inconsistent with how I view young people, but I think it's an important book, and I'll definitely read what else comes out.
All right. Elena, what are your thoughts on Son of a Trickster?
I agree with the things that Gagné Dio was saying. I love the word humanize, because that's what it felt like to me as a reader, that it definitely humanized the Indigenous perspective. It showed us culture, it showed us lore and myth, and I really enjoyed that. My main critique would be that as a standalone, because yes, it is a part of a trilogy, but as a standalone book, I didn't get a beginning, middle, and end, which I understand because it is a part of a trilogy, but as the one book to win Canada Reads, I didn't feel like the ending tied things up or was the ending that I was looking for.
Dia, what would you say about that? The middle, particularly this comment by Elena about the chunks of the book and sections of it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think I sort of knew that when I was selecting the book too. Like, I knew that might be a disadvantage, the fact that it was, like, when you finish it, you're gonna be left wanting more, right? Because that's how she ends it. She knew she was always gonna write a trilogy. But, yeah. Whatever.
Whatever, huh?
I just feel like it is what it is, you know what I mean? It is the first book in a trilogy, but I agree that, you know, like in the beginning, it takes a little bit to get into it and get to the magic with the pacing and stuff like that. But again, I read it knowing that there's gonna be some follow-up and that you're gonna follow this guy or this kid for a while.
George, rather than ask you if it's like the Die Hard and can you understand two if you haven't seen one, I wanted to ask you, did it do a good job at humanizing Indigenous people?
I think it did, and I think it's so important that the rest of the world if you've never heard these amazing stories, that I actually got to grow up with some incredible stories, Mi'kmaq stories from back in the Maritimes. When I was reading the book, I mean, the author, once you meet her, she's hilarious. If you don't laugh when you hear her laugh, something's wrong with you. And after reading the book and then meeting her, I just wanted to hug her. Like, it's that kind of really good feeling book. And as far as, it kind of leaves you hanging. In my business, when you finish a show, if you leave the fan wanting more, you've done a great job. And as an author, she did a great job at that, albeit fiction, and it definitely is fiction. I thought it really touched on a lot of really amazing moral stories in there, as well as having the magic and all of that lore come in. It definitely put a smile on my face after reading it.
Okay, it's time to rewind the clock with the help of our CBC archives. When critics talk about the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion, they sometimes talk about tanker traffic or the impact on southern resident killer whales. Well, some Burnaby residents may also remember the time 13 years ago when crude oil burst from a Kinder Morgan pipeline. Here is Chris Brown with that story.
In an instant, this pleasantly green suburb of Vancouver became a black, gooey mess. It sprayed like a geyser. Thick crude oil spurted more than 30 meters into the air from the ruptured pipeline, coating everything it touched. Homes, lawns, and cars, all blanketed in a nauseating black ooze.
I looked to the end of my street and all I saw was black oil running down the street and black on the trees.
And it was spraying everywhere, and there was people kind of running all over the place trying to figure out what to do. There was a lady across the road yelling, wondering what she should do with her kids.
And it didn't stop there. The pooling oil poured off a major highway down to the waters of the Burrard Inlet. The pipeline connected a refinery to a tanker refueling facility in the harbor, broken inadvertently by a construction crew's backhoe.
We're going to have to sort out exactly how this mistake was made, because there certainly wasn't, according to our drawings, any possibility of connecting with any pipeline at the place they were digging.
It took at least 30 minutes for the crews to stop the gushing pipe. More than 100 families were ordered from their homes.
I got the phone call from my parents and they said, yeah, don't think about coming home tonight. Probably won't be coming back in until late tonight or tomorrow sometime.
By late afternoon, the spill was contained, but in an area so rich in wildlife, environmentalists worry the damage to a delicate coastline will be severe.
That area has some really high value bird habitat. So we've got shorebirds, we've got water birds, different kinds of ducks and geese, and marine mammals like seals use that area quite frequently.
The cleanup has already started, and so have the questions about how a mess like this could have been created. The contractor doing the work has already suggested that the map given to workers by the city of Burnaby was inaccurate, but the mayor denies that. Many investigations are already underway.
CBC Vancouver is so lucky to have an award-winning photographer on staff. Ben Nelms captures all sorts of images of life in our city. Here are some of his best of the week. And that's all for Our Vancouver for this week. I hope you'll join me weekday afternoons on CBC Radio 1 for On the Coast. Goodbye for now.